Hello, folks. This is Pastor Mike Hoggard coming to you from Studio 2012 with another Watchman video broadcast. You ever see the movie The Matrix? I have. The whole series of the Matrix movies. The Wachowski brothers, they ransacked all of Earth's religions. They just kind of compiled it down into one. And then they took every cool science fiction idea that there was and packed it down into this movie. I say science fiction because science fiction, and I have read science fiction, I've enjoyed science fiction all my life. I'm like a sci-fi guy, a geek, a sci-fi geek. Used to be, more so now. I just like to deal with the reality of the Bible. But I know a little bit about what's been written, what's been put in movies over time. And it's always interesting that the things that showed up, let's say, in a book or in a movie or a cartoon 50, 100 years ago, 25 years ago, it always has a way of ending up like in somebody's hand. The tricorders they used on Star Trek. We're getting close to that now with the handheld devices. And all of the things that are going on right now had a start in the imagination realm of the mind. Just sort of people dreamed it up to see if it could become reality. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. The other day I was at the hospital with my daughter who was giving birth to our grandbaby, and I was just kind of going over some news articles, some things that were going on in the science realm, and I saw this one. I could not believe my eyes. Two articles actually linked together we're going to deal with this week. Here's the first one. I want you to listen to this now. Now remember, this is not science fiction that I'm going to be reading you. It is now science fiction. It used to be science fiction because in the Matrix movie you had the character Neo and you had all these people, and Neo finds out that he's like in a la-la land, a dream world, a world created by a virtual world created by the computers. That's already taking place now, too. But anyway, you see Neo, and he gets what they call jacked in. This big old long probe that sticks up in the back of his head. And all of a sudden, he's in this little world, and they download a program to his brain. And now he knows karate, he knows jiu-jitsu, he knows different languages. He knows all of these things, and he learns how to manipulate them with the power of his mind. And all this is done scientifically. Listen to this article here. An MRI machine could teach you kung fu and everything else. The idea of jacking yourself into some sort of machine that can teach you anything you want to know without you having to, do anything is total science fiction. Or it would be if some researchers hadn't just done it. Teachers, you are now obsolete. Just a few months ago, we wrote about how UC Berkeley researchers have been able to use functional MRI machines to extract your genes from inside your brain. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. A joint American and Japanese team has since discovered that this technique works both ways. It's possible to use an MRI machine to generate specific patterns inside your brain that can be used to teach you new things. Now, the article is going to tell you how it works. You pick a task that requires high performance from your visual cortex, like catching a ball. Then you go find someone who's a pro at catching a ball, stick them in an MRI machine, and record what's going on in their brain while they visualize catching a ball. Now you've got your ball catching program, and you're ready to learn. Next step, put yourself into the MRI machine and rig it to induce that pro ball catching imagery that you recorded earlier in your brain using neural feedback. You don't even have to be paying attention while this is going on. Your brain, though, becomes familiar with that pattern, which is what learning is. Your brain becoming familiar with patterns. Play that pattern back enough, and you'll get better at whatever activity the pattern is associated with. This isn't just conjecture. The researchers involved have shown that this MRI pattern playback can, in fact, quote, cause long-lasting improvement in tasks that require visual performance. In theory, a type of automated learning is a potential outcome. Yes, that's right. Automated learning, it's real science. Now, who besides me thinks this is just spooky? Okay? Now, let me go back. If I was like in high school again, or I was going to college again, I would dig this. I would so get into this because I hated to study. I hated to study books. I hated, and now I do that all the time. But I hated to do that, and I just wish that somehow, some way, they could just like inject all of this learning into my brain. That was back in the 80s when computers were first coming out. Now we're there. We have the ability as a species to take instantaneous ideas and put them directly into our brain, and so that they're known immediately, including how to throw a ball, how to do certain things. These ideas, where do they come from? You see, I have this little theory. I think God's people are inspired by the Bible. And we get our ideas, our philosophies, our ways of life. We get them from the Scriptures, and the Holy Ghost puts them into our heart. I want you to think about the opposite now. I want you to think about what Paul talked about in Ephesians chapter 6, because this is what I thought of when I'm going over this thing. Paul said, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places." 4 things here. Now, the thing I want to concentrate on today with this idea is powers. Powers. Think of powers. Think of spirits who inspire or give powers or ability to people that they do not ordinarily or have or cannot naturally acquire. I think that that's indicated in the Scriptures. You remember the one who was possessed of devils? His name was Legion. The Bible tells us that he had super strength, that they would bind him with chains and he would just break the chains and then just go back to the grave, which is where he liked to hang around dead people, once you think about that for a while. But anyway, he had powers given to him by devil spirits. These are the things that you and I, as born-again Christians, are wrestling against. Not the people who invent the machines, but the devils who inspire them. They are the ones who have powers, who want to give people powers. They want to, and I want you to think about this idea of implanting thoughts or seeding thoughts inside of someone's mind. That's been done before. We're going to see the spiritual implications of it. While we're dealing with Ephesians chapter 6, dealing with principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places, we go back with this same concept back to Daniel chapter 7. Daniel says he saw 4 great beasts rise up out of the sea. The 4th beast was dreadful and terrible. And when you read that description of that 4th beast, you'll see that this beast definitely has power over everyone. Daniel chapter 2, the 4th kingdom, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. We don't know exactly what that all entails, but we know that somehow, some way, there's going to be a fusion of this satanic realm into the very being and bodies of human beings. Literally his seed, his DNA. And I think we're approaching that with the technology, with the ability. I talked about on one of these Watchman broadcasts here not too long ago about the idea, it's called the singularity. The idea at the time at which computers become so fast and so smart, and then we all together figure out a way of fusing this into our bodies and making the machine world part of our... This is like what the Terminator series is all about, what the Matrix is all about. I've seen all these movies about how the robots and the computers get smart. It never works out good for the humans, okay? Just telling you, it just never works out good for the humans because they control and dominate. That's what these principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places, that's what these are all about. Daniel 7, the 4th beast, he rules over all mankind. Daniel chapter 2, this is the 4th kingdom on the earth that is dominating planet Earth. Then in Revelation chapter 6, we have the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The first one that comes out is a white horse, and the rider on him has a bow, and he goes forth conquering and to conquer. And so it's all about taking dominion over mankind, and the whole focus of this is the human brain. It's the mind. I'd mentioned earlier about this idea of seeding thoughts. They mentioned the movie The Matrix. I remember seeing a movie all the way back in the 80s. It was called Brainstorm with Christopher Walken. I mean, when I'm talking about it was weird, okay? Now, the technology that they envisioned then, it was interesting because even in the movie, when they first developed this technology, the technology was they hooked this guy up to this massive helmet with all these wires and steam coming out of it and everything like that. And it was reading his thoughts as he did something, as he spoke. The machine read his thoughts, it recorded his eyesight, recorded what he heard, it recorded how he moved his muscles, and it recorded everything that he felt. And it recorded on this big old massive like videotape machine thing. And then they would put the helmet on somebody else and they would play that back, and that person would experience exactly what this other guy did. That's what this machine, this MRI machine, this is the system that they designed right now. This was fantasized about in Brainstorm back in, I think it was sometime in the mid-'80s. And by the way, there was one, and I want you to think about all the good possibilities of this, including all the bad ones. Part of this movie, Brainstorm, and here's I was going to say this about the technology. As the movie progressed, they found ways of making the technology smaller and smaller, so it was just this little headset that this guy wore. Okay? That's exactly how things work nowadays. But in this movie, Brainstorm, there was the element of the military takeover of this technology. Surely the military would have no use whatsoever of being able to plant special abilities inside of a person's brain. Surely they would have no interest in that whatsoever. Surely the CIA is not interested in psychological operations of any kind. Being able to plant thoughts and images and things inside of people's... Surely they don't want to do anything like that, do they? Yeah, I think they do. And then there's the fantasy aspect of it. In the movie, The Brainstorm, I saw the movie. I know what happened in this particular movie was a guy recorded him and another woman, okay? And then he just kept looping that playback over and over and over and over and over. It's like the ultimate of fantasy reality in people's lives. And we have the technology now. We have the capability. And all of this goes back, the ability to seed a thought in someone's brain, all the way back to Genesis chapter 3. You see, there's some people out there, and I kind of get where they might be coming from on this. The Bible talks about the first son of Adam and Eve, who was Cain. The Bible refers to Cain being of that wicked one. Now, some have taken this idea and said, see, there was this, the devil, he slept with Eve, and Cain was like the son of the devil and Eve, and on and on and on. And I don't agree with that, but I can kind of see where they get that. But here's what we don't know is whether or not the devil actually mated with Eve. What we do know, what we know beyond any shadow of a doubt, exactly what the devil did to Eve in the Garden of Eden in Genesis chapter 3. He spoke to her. And he spoke to her words that Adam had not said to her, that God had not said to her. He spoke to her words. You see, he's the tempter, he's the deceiver, he's all of these things. And he spoke words to her. And he planted a seed of thought inside of her brain, inside of her mind, which caused her to act precisely the way the serpent wanted her to act in Genesis chapter 3. You see,